Story 1, bide my time until I can invest in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Nvidia, and then start massively mining Bitcoin in 2009. After that, I do whatever I want. Story 2, I do not know. I would probably cry, knowing that anything I do could drastically change my future and that I would never see my children again as a result. In a way, this is a fate worse than death. Story 3, Dear Amy, you do not know me yet. In fact, it will be years before you can even read this. I know that writing this letter might change our decisions, and we may never have the chance to meet, fall in love, or get married. I want you to please do one thing. In the year 2020, please have a colonoscopy. You grow up to be an amazing, loving, beautiful woman, but you are taken away from me at age 45. If you get checked in 2020, you will still be here in 2025, and I need you desperately. I love you. From me. Story 4, go to my sister's room to determine if it is the part of the year when I was 10 and she was still alive, or if it was after she died. Story 5, tell my sister if we stick together, we will make it through together instead of allowing our parents to play us against each other. Story 6, I need to find my future wife. I want to hold her hand and tell her everything will be okay. I also want to share a few important things with her. Next, I need to convince my parents that my younger brother is at risk for cancer. Finally, using as many advanced words as I can and with courage, I need to convince school staff, doctors, and my parents that I am not okay and need testing immediately. Story 7, I was already facing depression at that point, so I went to therapy before it worsened. Story 8, start saving all my Christmas and birthday money. As a teenager, deposit it all into a high-yield savings account. Get a job and put all my earnings into the same account. Never start smoking marijuana. Never start drinking alcohol. Go to college for nursing right after I graduate. Make sure my grandfather knows how much I love him and appreciate everything he has done for and taught me in my life before I watch him take his last breath at 19. Story 9, I am more interested in what people would choose to do in 1999. I was 10 years old. I would have gone to the mall with a friend and my nanny. The day would end at Blockbuster, getting some unusual candy and 2 or 3 movies for the weekend before heading back home. I also think I would spiral into a mental breakdown, being 10 and having the knowledge of a 36-year-old. Story 10, quietly tiptoe downstairs to the kitchen and get the sharpest knife, then go and have a word with my stepfather. Story 11, start to learn coding then and there, constantly push my mother to get me the medical appointments I need, which would have saved me so much anxiety and problems later in life. Start exercising. The list goes on. Story 12, run to my parents, hug them, and tell them how much I love them. They are still alive, but I feel like I did not appreciate them enough growing up. I would also tell them to get me tested for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 13, if it is a school day, I would ask the math teacher about the college-level derivatives that I teach. I am labeled a child prodigy who can graduate college at 14. Story 14, I would probably just lie there for a second, staring at the ceiling and figure out what just happened. Then I would run to the mirror to make sure I am actually tiny again. Once it sinks in, I am heading straight to my parents to give them a big hug. Not even being dramatic, it would hit me that they are younger too, and I would just want to soak that in. I will make sure I am acing everything at school this time. No more stressing over algebra. Story 15, tell my sister she has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and that I have autism. After explaining it all to my parents, advocate for us to stop being psychologically and emotionally abused by our teachers. Request a change to a school that would support us by talking to the psychologist or counselor who visits our school sometimes so he can help us. Story 16, convince my parents to let me borrow $10,000 from them and fly me to Las Vegas so I can put all that money on Detroit to win the 1968 World Series and Denny McClain to win more than 30 games. Story 17, going back in time with all your memories seems like a totally neat experience until you realize the small differences from your new decisions slowly result in a future markedly different from the one you remember. At that point, your memories are no longer useful, and you have to deal with remembering 2 different versions of the past. I think that would make me literally insane. Story 18. It would have been nice to have the kind of parents you would miss. If I were 10 years old, I would do what I did. Get out of there. I would have made myself go to a better college or university. Story 19. Invest in the friendships I now miss. Be kinder. Get corrective orthopedic surgery earlier. Hug my mom and tell her I love her more often. Learn to clean my room and take better care of my things before struggling with it as an adult. Prepare my dad better for my mom leaving this world 10 years later. Stop waiting for my parents to teach me things they should have mastered but didn't. They were struggling too much with my mom's cancer to try, mainly so I wouldn't be so angry and rebellious about it later. Stick with sports and hobbies longer, not just for continuous entertainment but to build community and improve skills that match those of my adult friends. Do not waste opportunities and exposure to the breadth and depth of the world I thought would always be there and available to me. Learn the term data science and pursue it with vigor, not letting anyone deter me from engineering school or suggest marketing as an alternative to what they thought would really interest me, which was social work. Story 20. Report the abuse. Send him to prison and be able to breathe for the next 25 years without having to wait until he has a heart attack. Story 21. My dad died when I was 10, so hopefully it would be before that date and I could prepare myself. There are many things I would do differently, specifically education, getting a good job, and saving money. I also would avoid meeting my first husband. Story 22. Well, my brother would be 7 and alive. I would then be tasked with a horrible decision. Do I save him? He was hit by a car a year later and died after 3 months in the intensive care unit. But without his death, I would not have become friends with my best friend, who is now my wife, 33 years later. My other brother, who was born a few years after he died, would probably not exist. The philosophical horrors I would face would unmoor me, save my brother, but with such a huge change that I then live through an alternate reality I cannot predict, or live through all the same challenges I have experienced, but with more money and greater knowledge. Story 23. Get a bunch of paper and start writing down everything I can remember. Bitcoin, Apple, Microsoft, election results, September 11th, hit movies and music. Everything that might be significant. Try to remember dates for everything I can. Memories dull over time. I am not going to be able to use any of this knowledge for years, maybe for decades. I need to record it as quickly as possible and capture as much as possible. Story 24. Pretend to be a psychic medium and eerily predict future events, offering no further explanation when people inquire. Story 25. Tell my parents about stocks and investing. Tell my father about his future medical issues that can be fixed early. Tell my brother how he dies to prevent it. My marriage will be fine because I met my future wife before I turned 10. Story 26. Talk to my parents about mental health and ask to be tested for attention deficit disorder. If I could go back and make things easier for myself and others by getting the mental help I needed before I had the struggles, I would take advantage of it. Story 27. Bitcoin. Then I will think about how to get more Bitcoin. After realizing I can still get even more Bitcoin, I will get more Bitcoin. Then I do not know, eat a pizza or something. Story 28. First, I would find my mother and give her a big hug. Then I would clean my room because it was very messy. Story 29. Set aside some money and wait about a decade. Then take a trip to Pittsburgh to watch The Undertaker throw mankind 16 feet off of hell in a cell. Story 30. Mourn the adult life I had, including my partner and child. You start to dislike these hypotheticals once you have children because even if you tell yourself you will find your spouse and things will go the right way, there is no chance you will have the same children. Story 31. Remember to never tell my foster parents that I am gay. If I do not tell them, I will receive a full scholarship to Brown University. After telling them, I was kicked out. Story 32. Make smarter decisions regarding my health and weight. Refuse to take Ritalin, which was a direct cause of my weight spiraling out of control. Invest heavily in Bitcoin and other startups I know will be massive. Do my best to connect with the friends I made as an adult. Story 33. End my relationships with my so-called friends immediately, much earlier than I did in real life, and spend more time alone until I can get into university. Story 34. Before even getting out of bed, I looked at the shelf above my head and took the heavy books off. Terrible idea. Story 35. I realize my children will likely never exist now. It took a very specific series of events for the children I have to come into existence. Not only finding my wife, but also the timing and various biological conditions outside my control resulted in the people I know and love. Being 10 means it is basically impossible to recreate those exact conditions, and as such, they will never exist. Story 36. First move. Hug my parents. Then find my old Pokemon cards and start hoarding like a dragon. They are going to be worth something soon. Story 37. Leave the house, walk to the fire station on the corner, show them my bruises and welts, and ask for help. Story 38. Start documenting the abuse in detail before making the report, and do not do it right before she leaves the county. Story 39. That book that you know the exact location of but do not know what happened to in the years leading up to the move, put it in the drawer under your bed. For some reason, all that stuff is still in those drawers after the move, and now you can finally read the whole book. Story 40. Hug my brother and tell him I love him. Then tell my dad he needs to get custody of us as soon as possible. My mom was not neglectful or abusive. She was just ill-equipped and uninterested in being a parent. Unfortunately, that meant no one parented us. My mom did see how I was turning out as the younger brother and sent me away to live with my dad. She literally saved my life. My brother stopped going to school and got into drugs, eventually becoming homeless. If my mom had the strength to send him away a couple of years sooner than she sent me, I think he would have had a much better life. Story 41. Freak out because why do I have knowledge from a future that has not happened and may not happen? Story 42. Avoid the concussion at 11. Mine Bitcoins. Buy GameStop when it is under $12 and sell when it is over $450. Story 43. Take out the trash. Any person who causes a lot of pain in the family. If I have kept information, then prevent the abuse that I will shortly be put through that will traumatize me for life. Story 44. I do not care what knowledge I have. I do not want to go back to that time. I barely made it out of childhood. Story 45. Cry. I came so far to do it all again. I do not know if I truly could. The human soul can only take so much suffering. Story 46. There is nothing I could have done that would have saved me from what has happened in my life. So, I will probably just enjoy being 10 years old in my bedroom again. Story 47. Well, it would be 1981. Invest in Microsoft, a fairly new company. Invest in Apple and double down when the stock drops. They struggled in the late 1980s after Steve Jobs left, but surged when he returned. Invest in other companies that will do well over the next 10 years, selling before they decline, such as Atari and Nintendo. Be the Silicon Valley investor before anyone else. By 1991, when I am 20, I should be well off with a stock portfolio. Liquidate and start buying land. Stocks and their companies rise and fall, but real estate is always steady. Even if it falls, it will return. Focus on areas I know will be developed over the next decade. Then, in 2003, invest in Tesla. Sell before Elon Musk shows any controversial behavior. If I have done everything correctly, retire in 2024, before the political unrest takes office, and find another country to enjoy life in. I would be 52 or 53, still young enough to have fun. Story 48. Yeah, go hang out with my dad for the next 4 to 5 years. Then get laid like 12,000 times in high school and college instead of dating the same person until I was 27. God, I missed out on so much partying and fun, but mostly hang out with my dad until my 25th birthday when he passed. I definitely miss him more than anything. Story 49. Go and hug my dog tightly. Take her out for swims in rivers and lakes, and walks in the mountains. Spend more time with my dad. Continue working in agriculture with him, and learn how to grow vegetables and everything he knew. He knew so much, and I miss him every day. Story 50. I would cry. I fought so hard to get out only to be put back. Nothing I did changed it. Even with the knowledge I have now, it would not matter. It would be a waiting game. It would be years before I could change it. I would be prepared for it this time. It would be so hard to have to go through it again. Even a loud voice can be shut down when it is so small. Story 51. I would tell myself to write down memories so I could remember them later. I have no memories of my childhood. Story 52. Start reading more, learn languages, and invest my babysitting money. I would be retired and traveling by now. Story 53. Write note to self. Never get married by stock called Apple and Microsoft. Study not only fun things, travel even more because the world will get worse. Never agree just to be nice to people, trust your gut. And never let anyone guilt you into staying in a job or in a relationship of any kind. Story 54. Financial advice for my parents. I could literally make everyone in my immediate family a billionaire in the coming decades. Story 55. I was 10 years old in the year 2000. I would tell my father to buy as many Amazon shares and options as he could at $6 per share. Story 56. Call my grandparents. They are all gone now, and I really wish I had called them more. I miss my grandfather, my mother's father in particular. Ask my aunt to get a second opinion about her stomach so they can catch the problem earlier. Ask my parents about seeing a counselor for my anxiety. Hug my cat. Then make a note to suggest taking her to the kennel instead of leaving her at home with friends checking on her when we go on vacation. Turn on Nickelodeon and curl up under my favorite blanket with my stuffed animals and enjoy the beauty of summer vacation. Story 57. I would ask my parents when I can go and see my grandmother next. She lived fairly close, and she was one of my best friends when I was growing up. She died when I was 19, and I still wish I had more time with her. I would also make a note to invest $1,000 in Bitcoin in December 2011, when I was in my freshman year of college. Today, that would be worth about $26 million. Story 58. Late to the party, so no one will read this, but here is my answer. Not much immediately. I make small investments with whatever money I can get, do lawn mowing and similar work for more. I take school much more seriously. I get grandparents to visit more or at least talk more. Overall, I do not want to create huge waves. I need to keep much the same course or I will butterfly effect my current relationship out of existence, and I would not risk them for all the money in the world. Small things. Make myself very comfortable and casually send a few warnings here and there, but otherwise most of what I do is preparation to make my time now much easier and more fulfilling while trying to find my significant other and friends again. One of those discreet warnings would definitely be to Monty Alm. Saving that one. Story 59. You may like the first 15 lives of Harry August. Every time he dies, he goes back to his birth. However, he is not the only one, so they all have to keep their identities secret or competitors kill their parents before they are born. Story 60. I would hug my dad, grandparents, and my dog. Then I would saddle my horse, hug her too, and ride all over the farm, the huge and beautiful piece of property that I totally took for granted back then. Story 61. Convince my parents to move to Florida no later than the end of 6th grade for me. Some very bad things would have been prevented that way. Story 62. Tell my parents I want to be a girl. It would be a literal game changer for me. Since I started so late, it would have saved me 20 years of hating myself and not knowing why. Story 63. Start eating better and getting into shape. Also, make a list of companies to invest in early. Story 64. Run to my mother and hug her tightly. Tell her I love her very much. It has been 16 years since she passed. I miss her deeply. Story 65. I was stuck with 2 narcissists and 2 older sisters who were jealous of me because they thought I had it better since I was younger. If getting beaten every night was great, then yes. Story 66. Guess who is going outside and knocking on America Online, Yahoo, or chat rooms to find friends who were actually 30-year-old men? Me. It would be me. Story 67. Stand out on the back 40 with my dog and a cup of coffee and just breathe. I have to pull myself together before I walk back into my grandmother's kitchen and look people in the face whom I have missed for years. Story 68. Run and hug my grandparents, and then ask them to invest in Google, Amazon, and Apple. Then hug them some more and ask them to stop smoking because it is going to kill them both. Spoiler alert, it did in fact kill them. Mom in 2017 and Pop in 2019. Story 69. Same things I always did when I was 10 years old. Now, at 20 years old, we are completely altering the timeline. I am not going to waste years on a degree I will never finish, and I am investing in Bitcoin. Story 70. To find out if my mother and father have separated. My father passed away 30 years ago, and I have not seen my mother for 60 years. Story 71. Convince my mother to invest in Bitcoin and advise her to leave my father soon. Eventually, start my own business, buy my own home, and enjoy life by the end of this year. School would be boring. I do not miss any of that. Story 72. Tell my father he absolutely must give up smoking, and it is likely he has asthma. Both are going to kill him. Then I would tell him how much I love him and that I know how hard his life has been. Story 73. 1. Hug my mother. Call my grandfather and tell him I love him and not to go to the hospital for his surgery. Find a way to encourage my parents to get divorced. Then try to prevent the September 11th attacks. Story 74. That's a tough one. I don't even remember what it was like at 10. I don't think I would change anything other than making sure my mother got tested for diabetes much earlier and that she actually received her medication. Story 75. Prepare to spend time alone because many of your so-called friends will turn on you 4 years later. Watch them throw their lives away while you study and start achieving success. Story 76. Damn, probably some existential crisis. Later, I learn my dad is having an affair and is leaving my mom for someone else. So, it would be strange to wake up in a world where I should still trust my dad. Aside from financial matters like Bitcoin, I would probably try to save their marriage fully, like in the movie Parent Trap. Story 77. Debate whether or not to change my whole future by actually doing something about my empty threats of, I'm going to live with my dad. My stepdad was always an a-hole to me growing up and my mom never did anything about it. So my self-esteem was shattered before it was even built. But actually going to live at my dad's would change my future entirely because it means I wouldn't meet a lot of the friends I made in high school. I probably would have ended up in a different school for college as well, and so wouldn't meet any of the friends I made there either. On the other hand, I would have gone to school with all my cousins on my dad's side and grown closer to them instead of seeing them just a few weekends a year. I honestly think that living with him would have been motivation enough for my dad to stop smoking for good, too, because he always wants to avoid me having to inhale the smoke when I'm over at his place. There would be so many changes, so many people I would never meet, and so many I never have that I would. Ultimately, I don't even know what would be best. Story 78. I will dedicate every waking moment to getting my sibling seen by every doctor possible to find her cancer markers early, provide better food, and thus prevent her untimely departure from this world. I will forever miss what life could have been if she were still here. Story 79. I would be thrilled about the chance to live life over again. I always wonder if this type of situation happened, would I remember what was going on in my life at that time, or would it seem like it happened decades ago to me? Story 80. Invest more heavily into Dogecoin when it starts. It went from a fraction of a penny to about 20 cents. I had over 88,000 Dogecoin. If I had sold it at its peak, I would have made a decent amount of money. Story 81. I left myself a notebook filled with encouragement and advice about my future experiences with bullying in middle school and high school. Story 82. Let's be honest, my first move? Relax a little and enjoy the instant recharge timer and lack of cleanup. Once that's done, my next move is to give long, passionate hugs to parents who neither hate me yet, Dad, nor suffer from an inability to remember who I am, Mom. Assuming it's not a school day, I spend the entire day with them, soaking up as much time as I can. If after that perfect day I go to sleep and wake up still in the past, then I can turn around and start laying the groundwork for significant changes on all scales. Starting with getting one member of the United States National Security Council team on my side by demonstrating credibility and making it very clear that if they tell anyone else, I will play dumb and pretend they are crazy. Story 83. Work hard and study diligently. Enjoy sports more. Join the scouts and participate in camps. Story 84. I tell everyone, at the top of my lungs, that my uncle put his tongue in my mouth when he kissed me at Thanksgiving. Story 85. Start working on my confidence and attitude towards women. Investing, you might call it, and write down by Bitcoin whatever it takes. Story 86. Try to find my current boyfriend's parents' address and anonymously send them any information explaining why sending him to those child corrective wilderness camps is a terrible idea. Story 87. Focus on obvious financial opportunities and acquire additional skills whenever possible. Find a way to regain custody of my children if feasible. Prevent harmful events when possible. While none of my family members are significant enough to impact the world, I want to keep them safe from harm. Story 88. Start writing a journal of visions I have had. Announce predictions of things I know are coming in the near future. Eventually, many of my visions will start coming true because I know they are true. I predicted 7/7, COVID-19, Donald Trump as president, Epstein's Island, every Eurovision Song Contest, and Premier League winner of the past 23 years with pinpoint accuracy. I will predict the bus driver syndicate in my town winning the Euro Millions. People will come to me asking questions in the future. I will be a prophet more respected than Baba Vanga, more discussed than Mystic Meg, more accurate than a supercomputer. So once it gets to the current day and I am still that kid who gets it all right, I can change the world for the better. I can write in my journal or say on the news, I have seen visions that if Nigel Farage is the Prime Minister of England, the world will end in a nuclear blast. I have a near 100% success rate for 23 years. They will not dare question it. I will start getting things I want. If Cristiano Ronaldo does not join Glasgow Rangers on a free transfer and score 45 goals this season to help them win the league, I see a great tragedy. I can imagine it being the last game of the season. He has scored 44 goals. And even the opposition literally saying, here, take it, go score, Jesus man, we want to live. Bring back Pepsi Raw. Otherwise, rabbits will be extinct in 3 years. I have seen the knock-on effect in my latest vision. No need to go into it. If none of my future predictions come true, it really does not matter because I have kept everything as it was in real life to build my reputation. I have never asked for anything or tried to change the world itself. So when I ask for things, I can say the act of trying is what made it not happen due to the ripple effect. I could never get a prediction right again from age 33 until my death and still be the most accurate psychic who has ever lived by a large margin statistically. People would still fear my words even when my stock is sinking. Then, when I finally pass, people will discover more journals I wrote when I was a child, including some with completely fabricated lies for years going forward. Journals from when I had a 23-year, 100% success rate. Every year, there would be a news article written about me and why people should be fearful of everything I have written. Story 89. Fall over because I have gotten used to standing up by moving 4 or 5 times as much mass, using much more force and with a different center of gravity. Story 90. Invest any money I can get my family to invest in Apple and Nokia. Then start to focus in school and stop my little sister from bullying me. Everything will be much easier when I can see a clear path out of my troubled childhood. Story 91. Write down all the important things. The names of friends, important mistakes I need to avoid repeating, exercise and diet habits that have shown results, and investments to make with my money. Then I walk through the house to see everything as it was when it was still livable and lived in. I go outside, pet the dogs, and enjoy the weather for a bit. Then I go back inside and start mapping things out. What I need to do differently this time and how to keep myself accountable. How to stay sane while going through challenges again. What to do to prevent well-meaning people from causing problems. It would be very hard to do, especially in that household, but I think I could manage it. It would be isolating to grow up with the knowledge of an adult in the body of a child, but I would avoid the worst of my mistakes and maybe help the adults in my life avoid making their issues worse. Story 92. I would tell my mother that in 2 years, when she gets that first bad chest cold, to get an X-ray, or that chest cold will go untreated for 2 more years and not be diagnosed as lung cancer until it is already terminal. Story 93. Write down everything I can remember. Important dates, deaths, births, stock tips, worldwide emergencies, and so on. Keep updating the list every time I remember something important. People forget things, and I am going to want to have a log of what the future has in store. Then I will have to accept the fact that I cannot have the life I had before. My wife and children are gone. I will meet my wife again, but I doubt she will like the mentally older version of me. There is also school to think of. I was already borderline skipping grades at that age. Fourth grade me with an adult brain will ace every test. I am going to have to figure out what I want to do with my life for round 2 and consider the possibility that this is just the first reset in an endless loop. Then there is the issue of attraction. I am not attracted to teenagers anymore, but eventually I will be one, so there will be some issues I will need to sort out. Story 94. I am going to spend more time with my father and get to know his life story better. He passed away unexpectedly when I was 16. He changed completely within the last year of his life, and we became closer. I really felt cheated. Story 95. Write down 8 to 10 investments I should make in my 20s. Try to get my mother to stop smoking. Switch from clarinet to saxophone. Quit hockey, soccer, and karate to focus on rowing. Write consistently. Story 96. Try to talk to someone about getting diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism before it gets too bad and throws my life off track. Then see where I go from there, because just that would change my life in many ways. Hopefully, I wouldn't be a depressed, friendless person in middle school, would learn some actual social skills, have a more normal high school experience, make the most of my college experience, and not be scrambling to get my life together at 25 with little support. Story 97. Do not repeat my mistakes. Also, try to use my pocket money on Nvidia Corporation and Apple Incorporated stock. Maybe Bitcoin as well. Story 98. Eat better, exercise daily, and brush and floss my teeth after every meal and before bedtime. Story 99. I live life as normal for the first week, observing any changes within the timeline of events. If nothing has changed, I live life with the extra knowledge, using it to my advantage. If the timeline has changed, I do what I can and try to apply the old knowledge if possible. Story 100. Plan out investments, ensure I never cross paths with my former spouse, and spend as much time as possible with my family members. Story 101. The first thing I would do is visit both of my grandmothers, give them the biggest hug, and tell them how much I love them. Then I would find my dog and just sit with her, run my hands through her long fur, and truly soak in the moment. After that, I would dedicate my life to finding my fiancée. Knowing what she is about to go through, I would do everything I could to protect her and spare her from all that pain and trauma. I would trade 20 years of my life in a heartbeat if it meant I could save her. Story 102. Understand my learning disabilities and my family's disconnection from reality. Focus in school, persevere through the next 6 years, as I graduated high school early, and leave at the earliest opportunity. Running away at age 10 usually ends badly, and it certainly would have for me. Story 103. Convince everyone in the house to start going to therapy immediately. We would all have such different and better lives if that had happened. Story 104. Run to my mother's friend's house. Ask where her son is and about his friend as well. Find a way to get them both grounded or tell them not to stay out late. Thank you for babysitting me long ago. Rest in peace to both of you. Story 105. I just spend time with my parents and try to do whatever I can to save my mom from the cancer that could take her in 14 years. Story 106. Tell my parents about my ongoing self-abuse so they could stop it 2 years earlier and get me to therapy as soon as possible. Story 107. I would hug my mother and tell her how much I love her. Then I would call my grandparents every day to talk, especially my grandfather. Story 108. Break down sobbing because there is no guarantee that I will meet my husband again, and even if I do, I will be mentally much older, and we might not get along like we do in the present. Then try to get myself together and plan. Do I want to avoid my future rapist or entrap him to prevent future victims? Do I try to push my parents to divorce or give up because that only happened around retirement? Do I try to rehabilitate my abusive dad when he is younger, or just keep to myself until I can leave? The same goes for my older sister. Do I invest heavily in school and try to set up my future career, or just save as much money as possible before adulthood? Do I try to prevent my upcoming disability or accept that it is genetically inevitable, and even though the trigger is different, another trigger would happen anyway? Do I try to transition early in life, given that might also prevent my disability from becoming severe? Disability mostly affects women, and hormones can lower severity, or give up and start at 18. When I was younger, I dreamed of this type of scenario to the point of obsession. But after years of therapy and healing, it feels more like a nightmare. I do not know if my mental health would be horrible because I was ripped away from everything I knew and loved back to the violent, cruel past, or if I will be better because I have more tools to emotionally cope with bad things. Story 109. Tell my mother I want a magnetic resonance imaging scan. I do not know the exact age my cancer began, but if they find nothing, I will keep getting scans until it shows up. Story 110. Work hard and then buy $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. Spend more time with my mother. She recently passed away. Tell the girl in high school how I really felt about her. Story 111. The text makes you think I had a bedroom? I'm not doing anything that either gets me a hospital trip or a permanent vacation. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.